Hello fellas, how are you today? I hope you are doing so great. By the way, we are from group 6, consists of Asmaa Hanifa, student number 9, Haifa Risfia Putri, student number 12, and Yusi Mary, student number 36. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is about methodology research or research method. We have divided our presentation into 3 sections. The first is by Yusi, the second is by Asmaa Hanifa, and the third is by Haifa Risfia. So, let's start the presentation. In my turn, I will focus on what is research method. As what you can see on the screen, research method is the approach in which research troubles are solved thoroughly. It is a science of studying how research is conducted systematically. In this field, the researcher explains himself with the different steps generally taken to study a research problem. Hence, the scientific approach which is adapted for conducting a research is called methodology. What Chapter 3 consists of? The Chapter 3 consists of types of research. There are 3 primary types of research. For example, qualitative, quantitative, and mixed. The second is data collection. This is a technique or tools used for gathering data. For example, quantitative research using interviews. And the third is data source. This is any information collected and stored. The data source is divided into 2 categories. The first is primary and secondary. And the last is data analysis. According to Lecomte and Sensual, research data analysis is a process used by researchers for reducing data to a story and interpreting it to derive insights. The data analysis process helps in reducing a large chunk of data into smaller fragments, which makes, in the other words, research methods are the strategies, process, or techniques utilized in the collection of the data or evidence for analysis in order to uncover new information or create better understanding of a topic. I will a bit explain about the types of research based on the objective of research. The first is exploratory or formulative. This is to achieve skillfulness with a trend or to get novel opinions into it. The second is descriptive types. It is to find out the characteristic of a particular character, condition, or a grouping. And the third is diagnostic. This is to establish the relationship with which something occurs or with which it is related with something else. And the last is hypothesis testing. It is to test a hypothesis of a reasonable relation between different variables. And there are the basic types of research. The first is descriptive versus analytical, and then applied versus fundamental, and then quantitative versus qualitative, and conceptual versus empirical, and the last is some other types of research.
Here are the 4 theses that we will discuss in this video. The first one is A Child Colonization in John Payne's My Treasury of Aesop Fables, written by Raffi Raihan Nafis. Second is Man's Awareness on sexism issue experienced by women portrayed in Eleanor Poiriet's Oppressed Majority a Reader Response Study, written by Lintang Kinanti. The third is Comparative Studies Between the Hunger Games, Mockingjay, and Insurgent, written by Leah. And the last is The Color Transition Symbol Scene on Louis Lowry's The Giver, written by Vivi Twijanti. Let's get started with the first two theses. The first is from Raffi Raihan Nafis. For the types of research, it is a qualitative research. Raffi used the data of this study in the form of description without any number that is going to be analyzed. Also, the analyzed data was written in the descriptive form that explained about the phenomenon of adult colonization in children's literature. Second is about data source. In conducting the research, there are two main sources which can be classified as primary data and secondary data. The primary data is Aesop fables collected in Pinus My Treasury of Aesop Fables, and the secondary data is post-colonialism in children's literature and the discussion about moral value in children's literature that he got from journals, books, and online research to support the research. The next is data collection. There are 5 steps that Raffi has done in collecting the data. First, reading and rereading the book repeatedly. Second, collecting the data from the book. Third, reading and rereading supporting data. Fourth, collecting data from supporting data. And the last is grouping the data. The next part is about data analysis. And the process of data analysis is explained as follows: reducing the data, validating the data, analyzing the data, and concluding the finding. The second thesis is from Lintang Kinanti. First, types of research is qualitative research. In her thesis, Lintang gathered the data about opinion and experiences of individuals to gain a better understanding the issue of sexism. Furthermore, her analysis is called qualitative research as the contents are full of describing social phenomena. Second is data source. It can be classified into primary data and secondary data. The primary data is the male respondents' experience and their belief. And the secondary data is the relevant sources such as short film, book, and journal related with the issue and another forms of information about sexism and its awareness. The next subchapter is respondent requirements. The researcher only chooses 10 people, one from each chosen country, for the research becomes more depth and detailed. The small amount of respondent helps the researcher to analyze truly their aspect of awareness or unawareness from each person. Lintang added this subtopic since she used reading response theory. The subtopic is considered necessary because the vital data from this study concerns people's perspective. Therefore, so that the data needed is as expected by the researcher must make respondent requirements based to the research topic. For data collection, the researcher did 6 steps to collect the data. First, finding and choosing the short film. Second, choosing respondent. Third, making the question for interview. Fourth, pre-watching interview. Fifth, watching. And last, post-watching. While for the data analysis, there are 4 processes consist of classified, reduce, analyze, and conclude. From both of theses, we can conclude that first, both researchers chose a qualitative method as they were concerned with phenomenon instead of the aspect of quantity or extent. Second, both of researcher methods of the thesis were clear and detailed and contained the technique or tools used in the study. And last, in Lintang's thesis, we found the subchapter that we didn't find in another thesis named Respondent Requirements. She added this subtopic since she used reading response theory, in which the respondent's opinion and experiences become vital data on her research.
Next research. The color transition symbol seen on Louis Lowry's The Giver by Vivit Wijayanti. In her research, she uses the qualitative research as her types of research. In Vivit's thesis, she tried to figure out the meanings of color transitions and the first 5 objects that change color. And for her data sources, she divides into 2 types of data source. The first is the primary source as the main source, which she also used the novel called The Giver by Louis Lowry. And for the secondary source, she used this as the supporting data, which taken from the journals, books, articles, and the online. And in her data collections, the first thing she did was she rereading the novel repeatedly in order to get a better understanding for the data, and she collect the data from the novel, for example, from the dialogues, actions, characters' descriptions, and thoughts, and she also collect the data from the supporting documents like books, journals, and articles. And the last thing she did was she classified the data from the novel based on the theory of sign processes, symbol, and psychology of the color. In analyzing the data, she reduced the data, which she only takes the relevant data related to the research. And by analyzing the data, she also used the sign process, how signifies and what signs are communicating, as well as the And for the next study is a comparative studies between the Hunger Games, Mockingjay, and Insurgent by Leah. In her types of research, she also used the qualitative research. Therefore, the researcher can study in the natural settings such as experience and knowledge. And the Leah's data source consists also from 2 types of data source. The first is the primary source as the main source. She used the novel called Mockingjay and Insurgent. And for the secondary source as the supporting data, the researchers use development studies and the discussions about rebellions, journals, books, articles, and also online research. The data, she also rereading the novel repetitively, and she also collect the data from the novel, for example, the dialogue, actions, characters, descriptions, and she also collecting the data from the supporting documents like books, journals, articles, and she also reducing the data from the novel based on the discussions about women's studies and rebellion, processes, symbols, and psychology of color. Therefore, for analyzing the data, she classified the data, which she divided into 2 parts, as the similarities and the differences. And by analyzing the data, therefore, for the similarities between both of the theses between Leah and Vivit are the first. Both of the research between Vivit and Leah has the same types of research, which is the qualitative research. And the both research also has the same data sources as the primary and secondary data, which they both of them use an object which is novel.
Okay, so that brings us to the end. We sincerely appreciate your attention today, and we will finish up by saying thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.